what's going on? It's Ty. So I've been playing co-op games lately, and that's got me thinking, what are some really great spots to start when you want to jump into some co-op games? Maybe you haven't played many in a while, or maybe you've just been focusing on multiplayer or single-player games. So today I wanted to cover where to start and 3 recommendations that I have for great co-op games that really benefit from coordination between all the players. With that said, let's head down the warp pipe. First up is going to be Resident Evil 5. It's a personal favorite of mine for co-op games. It really benefits from coordinating between you and a friend of yours that are playing through the story together. So one of you can coordinate with having different weapons and different items between the 2 different characters. So although you can technically do the same thing as each other, there's not enough inventory space to carry everything on you at one time, which really allows for a lot of strategic planning. So one of you can carry a shotgun while another one carries a sniper rifle. You can sort of decide who's going to be up close and personal, who's going to hang back, or you can both decide to run in with your knives and go to town. So it's a really great experience playing through it co-op, although I wouldn't recommend it as highly if you're playing it yourself. So that brings us to player count. It's going to be 1 to 2 players for Resident Evil 5, and it actually gives you a variety of play options. So you can actually play it split screen, or like how I did, you can play it on your own systems and connect it online. The major thing here that you're going to notice is that the game does require a high amount of focus between you and your teammate. While it doesn't require a large amount of coordination, I would say it's a medium amount of coordination. It does require you to really communicate back and forth and really know what's going on and understand the full controls and all of the abilities and utility that you can get from those items and weapons that are at your disposal. For Resident Evil 5, I'd really recommend for 2 people who are looking for an interesting story that, if you haven't gotten into the Resident Evil universe before, you're going to be a little confused, but it's still self-contained enough that you can enjoy it. For me, it was actually my jumping in point in the first Resident Evil game that I actually beat. I've gone back and played the other ones a little bit since, and some of the newer ones, but I'd say it's a really good jumping in point for anyone that wants a fun co-op game that is like a team building experience. I liken it most to something like the original Gears of War and say that it's maybe a bit more of a action game than some of the Resident Evils, but it definitely has that kind of horror vibe and can build some really interesting and fun moments for both of you to experience, especially when you're separated and you have to kind of cover each other or work together and defeat some of the hardier bosses. So the great thing about Resident Evil 5 is that it's on almost every platform right now. So you can pick it up on the PS3, the PS4, which is backwards compatible on the PS5, the Android smartphone system, your Xbox One or your Xbox 360, and through backwards compatible, you can also play it on the Series S and Series X.
Got it.
Then you also have it on the Nintendo Switch, and last but not least, on PC. So no matter what platform you like playing on, you can pick this game up and give it a go. Like I said, you can also play it split screen, so if you only have one system and one TV, just grab a second controller and go to town. Next up, we have a game that I think could get missed out on by a lot of people who recently picked up a Nintendo Switch, and that's because it's from the launch of the Nintendo Switch, and that's going to be Snipperclips. This game offers a really fun, light, almost party environment for puzzle solving. So you got these different shapes that you need to kind of cut each other into and try and complete puzzles in order to progress through the different levels. So in terms of player count, it's 1 to 2 for the single player or co-op campaign. Again, you can play it single player, but definitely better with a second person. You can have a lot of fun messing with each other. However, there is an up to 4 player kind of battle mode where you're both trying to compete against each other or compete against each other's teams to solve a puzzle. I haven't personally played that mode before, but what I played of the co-op campaign was a blast, and I'd highly recommend it, especially for a family fun night. So the one downside of Snipperclips is that it does require the people to be in the same room, which isn't always the easiest thing to do right now. But with that said, it is about a medium amount of focus required. So you don't have to be as quick-witted or sharp-shooting as you would need to be in Resident Evil 5, but you also benefit from being able to play around a little bit. So for Snipperclips, I'd actually rate it about a medium in terms of focus. You don't need to be hyper-focused in terms of solving the puzzle, and there's definitely some room to play around and mess with each other while you're going through everything, but it benefits from at least paying a little bit of attention and needing to solve the puzzles. There's definitely a few that you can solve while trying to goof off and not really pay attention, but ultimately it requires you to pay attention a little bit. In terms of coordination though, it's going to be a high. There's a lot of coordination that's required, especially with some of the later puzzles, in order to get through and solve everything. So unless both of you are on the same page and trying to work together, it's not quite overcooked in terms of causing frustration, but you'll need to coordinate and communicate with each other to solve the puzzles. Almost like another great co-op game of mine, Portal 2. So I'd recommend this game for anyone that's kind of looking for a family fun night, or something to play with their kids or a significant other, or even a friend who doesn't play a whole lot of video games. Very simple controls and really allows your imagination to take over and come up with creative solutions to puzzles. There's not one solution that fits all, but there's definitely some efficiency that you can find from understanding the concepts and understanding the game. As for the systems it's available on, unfortunately, this one, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be stuck on the Nintendo Switch. That's not a huge deal because it's one of the most successful systems that Nintendo has ever released, but it means if you don't have a Nintendo Switch, unfortunately, you're going to miss out on this one. Last but not least is going to be Marvel's Avengers. This is a game that I didn't initially want to pick up. I was waiting for a sale on it, but I have to thank my buddy Jace Ventura for grabbing it for me as a birthday gift. It's a phenomenal co-op game that actually harkens more back to old school beat-em-ups and actually gives me a very familiar Diablo 2 kind of feel here. But you'll understand as I get more into it. So for Avengers, you're really looking at something where it's a lot of fun to play with your friends, and although it has some downsides like the aesthetics of the character being tied to a progression and unlock system by completing daily and weekly challenges. So as you're collecting loot, it's not changing the look of your character, it's only adding and upgrading your abilities. It's still a lot of fun to play with friends. So this one you can play with your friends and without them. It's a 1 to 4 player experience, but definitely benefits from having extra friends around. The different heroes have kind of different specializations. Myself, I've been playing as Iron Man, and the benefit with him is that when you switch to lasers, you kind of go into what I refer to as stun bot mode. So you basically can just build the stun up on people from the air, and then your other friends that are on the ground playing different characters like maybe Hulk or Captain America can jump in and melee take down the bigger enemies while you're kind of fending off and blasting turrets and building up stun damage on other people. So for this one, although it is 1 to 4, I'd actually say the sweet spot is probably about 3-player co-op, and the real specific reason behind that is that the AI is incredibly good at reviving downed teammates. Much better than a normal person can be. That's not to say normal people can't be, but the AI is basically a magnet and will rush and stand right where you are if you get downed. So very little you need to worry about. Another thing that's nice is in the accessibility options, you can actually change the settings and mention that it goes from, instead of tapping the button or holding the button in order to break out of QTE or quick time event things like getting frozen, you can actually have it just be a single button press. I know for me this allowed me to kind of enjoy the game a little bit more and play it more relaxed rather than being really intense the entire time. So the nice thing about Avengers in terms of the overall experience is, although you have to play it on separate systems, it's actually a quite relaxing and chill experience. It doesn't require a large amount of coordination, and it doesn't require a large amount of focus. It does benefit from coordinating with your teammates to take down the bigger enemies or weak spots on a certain boss. You can do a dual takedown, so if an enemy gets downed and they're kind of in a weakened state, your allies or teammates can do a takedown on them, and if you get there in just enough time, you can do sort of a team takedown where two of you do an additional amount of damage to the enemy so that they take a lot more damage of the overall sort of process. Also, it looks really, really sweet. I'd really recommend this game for anyone that is trying to scratch that Diablo itch or is looking for something that's a natural evolution of the beat 'em up genre. I feel like this game actually has more in common with Streets of Rage, Castle Crashers, Battletoads than you would actually think. It's a little button mashy, but not in a bad way, and it's not really hard to die, especially once you get to the later parts of the game. Also, the single player campaign, and I use that with an asterisk, because you can play some of the levels co-op, however, the first little bit and the last about 2 hours are single player only, but it's still really good, and it's only about 12 hours that afterwards you can jump into some, while repetitive, a lot of fun to maybe have a drink or sit down and relax with some friends while you're all playing online. So this one is with a little bit of a catch here. As of March 18th, there's the next-gen updates for this game. So that means you'll be able to pick it up on not just, like right now, your PlayStation 4, but you'll get an upgraded version on your PlayStation 5. Goes the same for the Xbox One, and you get the upgraded version on the Series S and Series X. However, there's also two other platforms this is on. Google Stadia, if anyone's actually playing it there. Google Stadia, if anyone's actually playing any games there, as well as PC. So there's unfortunately no cross-play, but you can definitely jump in and enjoy it. As of March 18th, the cool thing about this game is that additional expansion is coming out. So there's been one single expansion for Kate Bishop, and then another one coming out for Hawkeye. So the content is actually free, you don't have to buy any additional things. However, if you want to upgrade the characters, you'll actually have to go and buy the kind of battle pass for that character. Not that you won't increase in power and get your abilities stronger, but if you want to unlock all the cool emotes, takedowns, and outfits. So there we have it. 3 co-op games for very different experiences and very different vibes. So you got Resident Evil 5 for some really tight, story-driven kind of co-op experiences. Have Snipperclips for that family fun night or just trying to have a party. And last but not least, Marvel's Avengers, if you want something with a bit of a grind, but is a great put on in the background kind of game, the same way that you could do with Diablo 2 back in the day. So if you have any other ones that you think are awesome, mention them down in the comments below. And like I said, this is just a little sampling. There's always more out there. And I'll see you guys next Games Tuesday.